That's funny. All right, good morning, everybody. It is 10:30, so we're gonna get started. We're gonna take care of a couple of housekeeping items first. My name is Laura. I'm kind of in the background helping Al answer the questions you type in, and Al is going to do his presentation on Business Plans 101. If you guys would like to ask him a question, you can type them in the Q&A as well as the webinar chat. You will get a email from me later today or tomorrow morning that has um, it will include the recording of this as well as the slides. So you will have that for your reference in the future. With that, Al, are you ready?
I am. I am. We encourage questions. Depending on how many folks we end up with, we may postpone them to the end, just to make sure we can answer all the questions. And if people have to leave by the end of the webinar, it won't. They may miss the questions. We don't want them to miss any of the webinar. So we're up to 50 participants at the moment. So I'm going to suggest that we postpone them to the end, Laura.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
You guys can still type them in.
Yep.
And they might actually get answered while he's speaking. But yeah, and then I'll scroll back and be able to read through them for him. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. If you have a question, type it in. So this is Business Planning 101. We're going to just kind of skim the surface of business plans. And the way we're going to do that is talk first about SCORE so that you know what we are and who we are and what we do. Talk about where to begin, the business plan, what to do next. So here we go. SCORE is a national organization. We're a resource partner of the SBA, the Small Business Administration. We have over 200 chapters across the U.S. We are U.S. based, so we don't. Somebody asked if we had a branch in Canada. We do not, nor do we have any in any place other than the U.S. Partly because we get a small amount, and I do mean a small amount of money from the federal government, so they want us to spend it in the U.S. We have over 200 chapters and over 10,000 volunteers like us. Locally, we cover the 5-county area of Medina, Mahoning, Wayne, Portage, and Summit counties. But we serve anybody that shows up. So we'll help anybody that wants to start a small business or run a small business or grow a small business. Since we started in 1965, the local chapter has helped over 55,000 clients. Nationally, we started in 1964. So we've been around for a long time. Last year was our 60th anniversary of SCORE. So we've been around a long time helping small businesses. We do two things. Our mission is to help small businesses. We do it through mentoring and education. So one-on-one mentoring and education like today. Our vision is to have every person, every business get the support they need to thrive. Every person, every business, bold vision. We've been at it since 1964. We don't have every person yet. We may never get every person, but we're going to try. As the mission says, we do it through mentoring and education. Mentoring is free and it's confidential, which is important, I think. We do it face-to-face. We can do it Zoom. We can do it by phone, however you like to be mentored. Sometimes people call us and have a question. We answer the question. That's it, the end of it. But I have clients that I've been dealing with for over 12 years now. So we'll work with you as long as you want, as long as you need. The webinars, we do day and evening, various locations. Sometimes we do them virtually. In fact, most all the time we do it virtually. Things like starting your own business and business planning, pricing, and marketing are things that we do. Okay. If you'd like a mentor, remember you're going to get a copy of this at the end. There's two ways to do it. You can go to akron.score.org or you can call us. Either one will assign you a mentor and help you any way we can. And what I believe is from the time it's a twinkle in your eye until the time you make so much money or you want to sell your business and do sell it, we'll help you anywhere in between, anywhere in the middle of that. Okay, so where should we start? Let's start by answering the question, why should I write a business plan? And the most common one is I'm going to the bank for money or I'm going for investors. That's the most common. But it's also a good way to quietly think about your business in the quiet of your own mind on pencil and paper or on however you want to do it. It doesn't cost anything to plan it. So if you're starting up something, you can ask, is this a good way to start? Does it make sense? And if you have funders or shareholders or stakeholders or anybody else, it's a good way to communicate what that business is going to be. But if you do decide to go for financing, if you walk into the bank and said, I'd like to get a business loan, the first question they're going to ask you is, do you have a business plan? If the answer is yes, come on in, sit right down. If you don't, they're going to say, you probably ought to get a business plan, and I would recommend you come to us, SCORE, and we'll help you write that. We won't write it for you, but we'll help you. What is a business plan? It's the roadmap to achieving whatever your goals are for your business. It should be a written document, and it's going to lay out the aspects of your business. What is your business? The SCORE template is designed to help anybody that wants to do any kind of a business, so I don't recommend it. You want to tailor the business plan to your business, and it shouldn't be your life's work. If it's more than about 10 pages, if it's a very complicated business, I'd go to 12, but never more than that. I've seen business plans as short as 6, 7 pages. So it doesn't have to be your life's work, but it's tailored to your business. And if you're going to the bank for a loan, it's a sales tool. It's a sales document because the bank wants to know, is this a good business? Am I going to get my money back? Well, that's the question you ought to be asking yourself. Also, is this a good business? Am I going to make money at it? And if the answer is yes, and that you can prove it because you've got a good business plan, then let's go for it. But a business plan is a way of kind of simulating your business on paper to see if it makes sense and if it's going to make money for you. So what do you do with it? Well, it identifies the opportunity for your business. What is it? Can you make money at it or not? It may surface some obstacles in either your startup or your growth that you hadn't thought of before. One of my favorite examples is the company called 23andMe. Remember them? You send in a saliva sample and they'll tell you what your heritage was and if you have any living relatives or whatever, dude. Great business. It grew to having a market value of $6 billion. But they didn't plan it because what they failed to recognize is nobody is going to do it more than once. Because once you know what your heritage is, you're not going to do it again because your DNA isn't going to change. And so a couple of weeks ago, I think it was sold for a fraction of that $6 billion market value for, I think, $250 million. They didn't want the business, they wanted the database. So they bought the database of people. So without that plan, thinking ahead about what your business is, well, they ran out of customers. As simple as that. 23andMe just ran out of customers. Crazy. But it helps you define your marketing and your operations approach, how you're going to do it. It helps to think through that before you open up your doors. It gives you a view of the market conditions if you do some research, and it plans for all kinds of things. So you might do a very, very optimistic plan, a very, very pessimistic plan, and one in the middle. And that would kind of do a stress test on it to tell you if it's really going to be a viable business. And then you can have a go, no-go decision. Is this good for me or not? And it may be a great financial plan, but you just don't want to do it. So my favorite example is 4 sisters are going to open a restaurant. And they're just about to sign the lease, but they came to SCORE and said, before we sign the lease, we'd just like to have a discussion about our business. And their business turns out they love to cook. That's going to be a great business. They can't wait to start it. They love being in the kitchen. They love to cook. They love to talk to each other while they're cooking. They just have a ball, and they're going to be open 3 days a week. Oh, that's interesting. Anybody know of a restaurant that's open 3 days a week? I don't. But the score advisor said, why don't you put together a business plan on the back of an envelope? Talk about the lease on the building and other your costs and for food and customers and wait staff if you're going to have them and so forth. And they put it together in the back of an envelope. It was a very, very simple business plan. And lo and behold, it doesn't work. It doesn't make any money. Whoa, that's a sigh of relief, because if they'd signed the lease, they'd been in trouble. Well, let's see if it works for 4 days a week. Still doesn't work. Well, let's do it for 5 days a week. 5 days a week, you could argue on a good week it does make money, but probably long term, best case it's going to break. Best case it's going to break even. So they do it for 6 days a week. So they run the business plan for 6 days a week, and what did they find? Makes money. Okay, not a lot, but it's profitable. And they're sitting there in the conference room looking at the business counselor, and they look at each other, and they said, 6 days a week that we're going to be together? We love to cook on weekends and holidays, but 6 days a week, every week? Nah. You'd be reading about us on the front page of the newspaper. 4 business owners shoot each other in the kitchen. So they decided not to do it for a very good reason. It just wasn't something they wanted to do. It made money. So the process of exploring that and talking about what that meant to them helped them decide it was a no-go. So how do you get started? What I would suggest you do is sit down on a small piece of paper. What's your purpose for starting your business? Or if it's one you've had in the back burner for a while, or you've walked away from, why you're going to restart it. And then define what success means to you. Is this a hobby business? Is this a business you want to retire from? Is it to make money to send your kids to college? What's the purpose for the business? Because those are important parts of thinking about what that business has to be. In the case of the 4 sisters, having fun in the kitchen was one of the primary reasons. And once they found out they couldn't really have fun 6 days a week, it wasn't going to be that much fun, they decided not to do it. If it looks good, what does your business look like? 2, 3, 5 years? You want to sell it? Is that one of the things? What's it going to look like in 5 years? And when is it possible to sell it? And what do you need to do to make it saleable? Because the research has found that a lot of small businesses aren't saleable. The reason they're not saleable is they didn't plan to sell it. Because they didn't plan to sell it, the business totally surrounds the business owner. So the only person that can run the business is the business owner. And if somebody were to buy it, they don't have that background, depth, knowledge, customer experience, product experience, whatever it is, they can't take it over. So if you're going to sell it, you need to plan that. You should do market research, industry research. And if you get a couple of things on paper, I would suggest you get a business advisor. Score advisors are really good at this. They'd love to help you. And again, you're going to get a copy of the slides. So back on slide number 7 is going to tell you where to go to do that. So with that backdrop of why you should do a business plan, I'm going to say again that business plans on paper are really cheap. Once you open up a store or start a business and start spending money, the planning stops. You're very, very busy in making it happen. So plan ahead and do a business plan. And even if it's the back of an envelope, it might be valuable. It will be valuable to you. So what's a business plan? Let's talk about the components of a business plan. Here's some things to think about. The executive summary is something you write last. But how about a mission statement? What's your purpose? What's your vision? What are your goals? Tell me about the market. Who's your customers? What's your marketing plan? How are you going to reach those customers? How are you going to run that business? What's your operational plan? How's the business going to operate? The financial plan is the most important because that tells you if it's going to work. And some appendices and maybe some other things you want to put in the back of it. So again, I've seen business plans as small as 6 pages. And actually, I saw a 100-page business plan once, and I thought, who in the world is going to read a 100-page business plan? So keep it short, because if you're going to the bank, the banker isn't going to make that decision. It will go to a loan committee, and I will promise you a loan committee will not read a 100-page document. So shorter is better. Right to the point is better. And you'll be a lot happier with the outcome. Executive summary, always write that last. Again, it's page and a half max. And that introduces the business. What is it? What's it doing? What's its vision? What's its goals? Who's the target market? What's your niche? Where are you going to play in this market? If it's a very crowded market, where are you going to play? How is your business going to be successful? Where's the money going to come from? And how are you going to spend it? And introduce the management team. Because I have seen bankers bet on the person long before they bet on the viability of the business. Because if they think the person can make it happen, they're much more likely to give the loan than if they're not convinced the person can make it happen. Okay. So in the business plan, talk about the opportunity. What's the mission? What's the vision? What's the business model? What are the goals and objectives? And so that helps set the stage for the market environment. What's your business? What's the industry? And where are you going to focus? Where are your competencies? Where are your unique capabilities? And what are the customers that you're going to deal with? Size, need, market growth. Is it growing? Is it shrinking? Is it going to be around forever? Not like 23andMe that turns out it's not going to be around forever. Once you've serviced every customer you're going to service, you're out of business. So you want to think about that. Are customers going to be one time? Or are they going to be repeat customers? So again, think all that through about the market that you're going to work in and you're going to play in. Do market research. Who are your potential customers? What's the size of that market? How do you reach them? What do they want? And how do they behave? So what's the value of market research? Let me give you 2 examples. We had one client who wanted to open up a storage shed business. You've seen these little storage sheds. You put your code in, you drive in, take your padlock off, you open up the garage door, put your stuff in there. Stuff that won't fit in your attic or your garage or your basement or wherever you can't store it. So he's going to open up one of these. And the marketplace question is, does the world need another storage facility? And so his homework assignment was to get a paper map, which was a challenge, and put little red dots every place on the map where he could find a competitive storage shed. And when he came back, it looked like the map had measles. There are red dots everywhere. They're around the corner, down the street, behind this, over by that. They're all over the place. So the question now becomes, does the world need another storage facility? So his homework then was to call 5 of them and ask the question, do you have any empty space? What we were hoping is everyone would come back and say, yeah, no, we have no space available, which means maybe we do need another storage facility. But that's not what happened. Everyone came back and said, do we have space? Oh, do we have space? We got big ones, we got small ones, we got little ones, we got left-handed ones, we got right-handed ones, we got space. If you come in today, you get the first month for free. Please come in. What that says is there's lots of extra storage space, and all you're going to do is add more empty storage space to the marketplace. And then how do you compete? Compete on price. Well, that's no way to win. So he took his money and went somewhere else, did something different. Second example is 2 gentlemen were going to build a drive-through beverage store. I'm sure you've seen them. You drive in one end, drive out the other, stop in the middle, buy a pack of smoke, 6-pack of beer, sandwich, chips, whatever you're going to buy, and you drive back out again. And the question is that going to make money? And they had talked to some other people in the business. They knew about what the average purchase was in one of these things. And so they found in the county they were in that the county engineer has traffic statistics. So they know exactly how many people drive by that, that space every day. The engineer keeps that because they need it for maintenance purposes. They know how many cars drive by and how they're going to be, what maintenance they need to do on that road or any road, and they can project out for the budget planning purposes. Okay, so they now know how many cars are going to drive by. So they ran the numbers in their business plan, the financial part of the plan, and decided how many customers had to stop for them to make money. So the question came down to, of every 100 cars that drive by, there are lots of 100 cars that drove by, but for every 100 cars that drove by, how many need to stop for them to break even? I've asked this question a lot of times, and people say 10, 8, 6, 14, 20. The answer is 1. All they needed was for one customer out of every 100 to stop and buy, and they would break even. If 2 or 3 stop, they make money. So they said, looks like a really good idea. So the market research said, you ought to do it. So they did. And a couple of weeks after they opened, I was driving by just to stop in and see how they were doing. It's a Friday. The cars are backed up out the street, down the street for, probably 500 feet, trying to get into this drive-through beverage. As it turns out, Friday happens to be payday at the industrial park that's very close by. So people are stopping in for the weekend to buy what they're going to buy. So I walked in, and he and 2 other people are working as hard as they can. One's taking money, 2 are getting stuff off the shelves, and other people are going to the back room to restock. I mean, they're just working their little hearts out. So I asked him, I said, you making money? He puts up 2 thumbs, not even stopped. He doesn't even stop to answer my question. He just keeps working. I said, looks like it's going to be very profitable. He puts 2 more thumbs up, keeps on working. So the market research really paid off in both cases, because it tells you whether you should or maybe you shouldn't start your business. A lot of places to go for that. Your library, your local library is a great place to start, but there's lots of other places you can go to do. You can do primary research if you want. You can talk to people. You can do SurveyMonkey. There's lots of ways you can do that, or you can do secondary research. And again, the library that has just a plethora of information is a great place to do market research. And you should look at your customer. You should know what your customer is. Who is that customer? Where are they? What do they look like? What's their age? What's their gender? What's their buying habits? What do they want? The more you know about that customer, the better are you able to serve that customer. Because the only reason we're in business is because of customers that come in and spend their hard-earned money and give it to us. So your marketing strategy is then to identify how you're going to reach those customers and who is that customer and what is the end result that they want. The way you do that is to start with the persona or the demographic of that customer. If you've got more than one, then you can have more than one, but start with one. The more specific you can be about that customer, the more able you are to meet their specific need and develop your marketing message to meet that very specific need. And that persona then becomes the basis for all of your marketing message. So if they like what they hear, the marketing strategy and how you're going to reach them, what media you're going to use to reach them, and all of that all comes from that specific persona. So an example would be Al's Bike Shop. Al's going to cater to left-handed female bicycle riders, professional between the ages of 25 and 45, own their own home, and professionally employed. That's pretty specific, you say, and that is very specific. But now you can begin to think about what's important to that bicycle rider. Well, first of all, if you're left-handed, you understand the problems with regular bikes with hand grip brakes, because if you remember, if you've ever ridden one, the right hand controls the rear brake because it's stronger, and you always want the rear brake to stop faster than the front brake. In a panic stop, you grab both handles as hard as you can. If you're right-handed, that's fine. If you're left-handed, that stops the front wheel harder than the back. And guess what? You flip over the handlebar. Every left-handed bicycle rider knows that. So Al's bikes are designed for left-handed women. 25 to 45, they're probably riding for exercise. They might be riding for sport, for racing. They may want to do long distance with a group, with a bike club. So what do they want? They want to be able to ride comfortably, safely, for long distances, and have a quality bike that's going to last. All of those things are very important. So that's the marketing message coming from Al's Bike Shop. And it attracts that left-handed bicycle rider because when they hear the message, they say, well, that marketing is talking directly to me. So that's where I want to go buy a bike. So as you think about your marketing, you want to think about the marketing mix, which includes product, pricing, promotion, and place. And the product you always talk to from the customer standpoint, because as with the bike, Al's Bike Shop, what's important to that customer is that she can ride safely for a long period of time, comfortably, with a durable bike. And you take the things that you have in your product or service and you look at it not from your point of view, but from the customer's point of view. And anything you do where you describe that product, you take it, you always describe it from the customer's point of view. Price, that's a really important. Notice that price is in marketing. It's not in finance, because pricing is a strategic marketing tool. And therefore, lowest price may not always be the best policy. But you need to think about price because it has to match your business model. When you think about price, I'd like you to think about value. Take out the word price and put the word value in its place. Because price is what people pay for it, but they equate that to the value they're getting. So for example, when I had young boys, I had 3 of them. I wanted to buy the cheapest sneakers I could buy. Why? Because they're boys. They tear them up. They certainly outgrow them. And in one case of one kid, he loses it. You come home in one shoe. I said, where'd the other one? I don't know, Dad. I don't know. So I want the cheapest shoes I can because they'll outgrow them or lose them or tear them up. When I buy sneakers, I want expensive sneakers because I love the cushioning in them for my knees and my back and my ankles. And I'm willing to spend a lot of money for sneakers because I don't outgrow them. I rarely wear them out. I certainly don't lose them, and I don't tear them up. So depending on what your product or your service is, where do you want to fit in that market? So let's take an example of how that might work, right? When you think about price in your business planning, every market is sized and looks like a pyramid. Some are tall and skinny, some are short and fat, but every market looks like this because the number of customers you have across the bottom is the greatest when the price is the least. At the top, where the price is the highest, you have the least potential customers. Take the car market. Down at the bottom, used cars, they're the least expensive of all cars you can buy. And the US sells more used cars than all new cars combined. Then you go up the pyramid to your luxury cars closer to the top, your Lamborghinis, your BMWs, your Mercedes. Fewer customers are going to buy that. But again, the price is a lot higher. So where do you want to be? How might that work? Let's talk about Ann and Bob. Ann and Bob are twins, by the way. And they want to be in the grass cutting lawn care business, but they have very, very, very different ideas about what that market should look like and how they're going to approach it. Interestingly enough, the point is they both make about the same kind of money with very, very different business models. How might that work? So Ann, she's the high-priced service. She calls it Ann's Concierge Lawn Care Service. Think about the words there, concierge, lawn care service. Ann's team comes out and manicures your lawn. They edge it, they trim it, they pull weeds. They blow the grass off the driveway. I mean, when they leave, it looks like a golf course. They only do business by the season. So you sign up in February or March and to do your lawn all year long. It's all inclusive. She fertilizes it. She puts weed killer on it. It's all inclusive. And if you're having a garden party and you let Ann know, she'll come out ahead of time and manicure that lawn. She'll even fertilize it a couple of days ahead of time and maybe even water it for you. So it looks great when your garden party shows up, whatever that may be. And that's a business model that's certainly high end. You can probably imagine who's Ann's customers would be. Bob, on the other hand, is a very different business model. He calls his business Bob Cuts. That's what Bob does. He cuts your grass, period. He shows up, lawnmowers come off the truck, cut the grass, lawnmowers go back on the truck. You got weeds, your problem. You got grass in your driveway, not his problem. You run edged, not his problem. Bob just cuts. Very, very different models, business models. They both make about the same amount of money. Also, Ann's team is in logo polo shirts and khaki shorts or khaki pants. If you get your shirt dirty, you must change it. So you carry an extra shirt in the truck. Bob's guys, if they even have a shirt, it may not even be today's shirt, it could be yesterday's shirt. Very different business models, but they both make the same amount of money. So the question for you is, where do you want to be and what is your business model and what value do you provide? Because you can see Ann's value is very different from Bob's value. So Ann can price it very differently than Bob because the value is different. So think about the value. Where are you going to be? And oh, by the way, you can't be in more than one place. You can't buy an inexpensive car at the BMW dealer. You can't buy a really, really expensive car brand new at a used car lot. So think about where you want to be and what your business model is and what that's going to look like. Promotion is how are you going to reach that customer? A lot of ways to do that today. And social media is a very, very crowded market. So you might want to think of some other ways that you can do promotion. Place is, where does that product show up or service show up? Do you bring it to me or do I come to you? We have learned during the pandemic that people prefer to have things come to them. I was in Olive Garden the other day and there were more carryouts than there were customers in the restaurant. So we think about the restaurant business differently than we used to. It used to be we always went in, sat down. Today we take it home or we have it delivered. And again, the real game changer in this has been Amazon, that has told us we can buy anything and have it delivered to our front door tomorrow. Or in one case, it showed up on my doorstep at 4:00 in the morning, much to my chagrin when the car came up the driveway at 4 in the morning. But Amazon has changed the way we think about place. So as you're thinking about that for you, what does that mean to you? How do you can differentiate yourself? And how do you provide what the customer wants in terms of place? Your operational plan, if you have a facility, you need to think about all the things that go with that facility. Do you even need one? And before you go out and get yourself one, you got to ask yourself in your business planning thinking, why do I need a place? Why do I need a building? Why do I need a facility? Or if I have to have one, can I rent one or can I borrow it for only the times when I need it? Can I lease it for only times I need it? Could I use a hotel conference room and only pay for it when I need it? So think about in this, what do I really need? If there's access, where are the customers going to be? How's that going to work? They opened a new marketplace kind of building with all kinds of different shops in it, relatively close to my house, and they do not have enough parking. I mean, they do not. And the shop owners take up about a third of the parking spaces before anybody shows up in the morning. So I think they're in trouble. I think they're in serious trouble because they didn't think about that in their business plan, or they did and ignored it. and other things. The time to think about this is before you start spending money, before you build a building, before you commit to anything, is to plan it on paper. How's it going to work? Think also about the experience that the customer has, the journey that they're on, from the very first contact till the time you're finished with them. What does that journey look like? And how can you wow them at every step in the process? We did some work for an optometrist, the one that will check your eyes, sell you glasses all in the same building. I think that's the right term. And they identified about 15 different points where they could wow the customer. And they consciously thought about how to wow that customer at each and every contact point. The last time I checked, they had gone from a small storefront to a larger storefront to two more spaces to their own building. Now I think they're up to 4 different locations because they wow the customer. So in your operational plan, how are you going to wow the customer? You also need to think about the legal environment in your business plan. Do you need a license? Do you need to be bonded? Do you need permits? What's zoning going to say about it? Are there any, if you're doing any food stuff, do you need the health department to approve it? Are there building codes that you have to worry about if you're working out of your home? What kind of insurance do you need? I'm working with a gentleman now who's going to do some work in the schools, and the insurance companies willing to work with him because he has children involved are limited. Not just everybody will provide that kind of insurance. And then what's your legal structure going to be? We have a whole seminar on structuring your business legally. So I suggest you attend that. But these are all things you want to think about in your business plan. And if you're going to work out of your home, please, please, please go check with the zoning department before you do anything, because they will be very, very helpful in making sure that whatever you're doing is legal. Some zoning departments just don't care. They don't have any strict codes. Others have very, very strict codes. My favorite story is my 2 sons were in the in-ground swimming pool business. In-ground means you need big pieces of equipment to dig the hole. So where do they park that stuff? In front of their house. They're living together, sharing an apartment or sharing a small home. So they park the stuff in front of their house. One day, the zoning inspector is driving by and he sees all this big digging equipment in their front yard. So he comes and knocks on the door, says, "Hi guys, what you doing?" They said, "We're living here." "Oh, this is residential, you say? What are those pieces of equipment out in front?" They said, "Well, that's for our business." He said, "Oh, really? Do you know you can't do that according to the zoning codes here in this little town?" "We didn't know that." And he says, "Well, now you do. And so starting tomorrow, your zoning violations will be $500 a day if you keep that equipment in your front yard." Oops. Where do you, late in the afternoon, find a place to park 2 large pieces of earth moving equipment? Oops. Should have checked with the zoning department. So if you're going to do anything at your home, please check. Sometimes if you're doing it in your home, if you're maybe doing hair in your home, if you're a stylist, maybe they won't care. But you should always check before you do that. If you're going to have suppliers, who are those suppliers going to be? You've got inventory. Where are you going to keep the inventory? Does it have a shelf life? What does that mean in terms of having suppliers and inventory? So think about that in your operational plan. And we always recommend that you have experts, advisory support. Board of directors is a little heavy, but you certainly should have an attorney that you can call and ask questions to, or get simple documents done if you need them. Unless you're really good with the numbers, I'd suggest you have at least a bookkeeper, if not an accountant. Certainly, you should have an insurance agent that you can get insurance from, maybe some consultants, score advisors, mentors, but have that panel of people you can call when you have a question, because none of us are good at everything. So find out the things that you're really good at and get some support in the other areas. So financial plan. I'm not going to talk about financial statements because that's something we have a whole, again, webinar on financial statements. I'm not going to do that because we'll talk about all of these topics here, which include balance sheets, break even, payback calculations, profit and loss, and so forth. But your financial plan is something you really must work on and do, because that will tell you a lot of things about your business. So what does that look like? Well, it starts with your upfront investment. So if you think about your bank account, when you have an upfront investment, whether that's for signage or a website or whatever you need to do to get started, brochures, business cards, you start out in the hole because you haven't got any customers yet. And so over time moving to the right, you start out in the hole. The next thing you have is you may have some fixed costs. Fixed costs are costs you pay every month. So if you've got a cell phone, you're paying for that. If you've got a space that you're leasing, you got to pay that. If you got insurance, you got to pay that. You got a website, you got to pay for web hosting. So all of those are fixed costs, and you pay those month after month after month. And what happens because of those fixed costs, until you have customers, you start going in the hole even further. But in the future, you're going to get some sales, but they may not come right away. So you have to, again, think about when sales are going to start coming in. And with those sales goes profit. But again, because the sales didn't come in, you've got these fixed costs and startup costs. If you think about that bottom line, that red line, you're digging yourself into a hole. And you're digging till you get to the point where you can cover all those fixed costs that come in. That is called the break-even point. That's when the profits equaled the amount of fixed cost you have. This graph isn't exactly right to scale, but the concept is when the fixed costs equal your profit, you break even. Now you get more sales and more profit. Now you start digging back out of the hole. And it's this point in time when you get your money back. That's an important point of time to notice. This bottom part of the curve is really an important part, because you should always have enough money to cover a little extra, maybe 20% extra, just in case sales don't come in as quickly as you hoped, in case you have some unforeseen costs that you have to pay. So that tells you how much money you're going to need to get your business started. If you don't have it, guess what? If you have it, okay. If you're going to borrow it, okay. But that tells you what you need to have in order to make your business work. So this is a critical part of your business plan, to make sure that financially it works. And I, again, would suggest some kind of business advisor to help you work through that. And thinking about all the costs is really an important part of that, because the errors of omission, when you left something out, are usually the things that kill you. It's not the ones you kind of misestimate. It's the ones you completely forgot about. And as you start your business, remember that cash is king. If you run out of cash, run out of money, you're out of business. It's just that simple. And the number one reason for many, many businesses going out of business, and you've heard that some don't last a year even, they run out of money. I can't tell you how many storefronts I've driven by where opening soon, but they never open. They ran out of money. Or they open up and they're gone in a month or 2 months or 3 months. They just ran out of money. They didn't do that planning. So what do you do next? Think about your strengths and weaknesses. What are you good at? And focus on the things you're good at, and start getting your advisors to help you in the areas you're not so good at. Write a mission and vision statements. Write them up so you know what you're doing and what your future looks like. If you go to business.ohio.gov, that's a great place to get startup information. It'll tell you a lot about your business and what you need to know in the state of Ohio. And I'm presuming other states have similar capabilities. Start on your business plan, and then meet with your business advisor, your SCORE counselor. I would much rather you come to us early, and and get going on the right foot than try to finish it all by yourself and come with a completed plan that doesn't meet your needs. So come to us first. You can even come before you put a business plan together. We live on sponsorships, so we always thank our sponsors, and we will now open up for questions.
All right, everybody, go ahead and type in your questions in the QA and the chat. I'm going to go back up from the top. Eric asked, what do you think that 23andMe could have planned differently?
They should have had an exit strategy. What are you going to do when you have no more customers? That could be as simple as go on, take the money and run, and just close the business down. Could have planned ahead to sell that database to somebody before they went into bankruptcy. But the fact that they didn't think about the fact that sooner or later they're going to run out of customers was a major planning mistake. If they had done that, if you were doing that and you knew that you were going to run out of customers in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you would think about your business differently. And if they, with a market capitalization of $6 billion, that's a lot of people. A lot of people lost a lot of money on 23andMe.
All right, let's see.
I'm a big fan of the go on, take the money and run strategy and just walk away. But if you plan to walk away, you think about your business differently than if you don't plan to walk away and you think it's going to grow continuously. I'm sorry, Laura.
Can you do a business plan before you get costs to manufacture? I'm in the process of contacting manufacturers, but my mentor wants me to put together a business plan now. I'm just not sure how to do that without costs.
Well, you can do everything in the business plan but the cost. In other words, you can put together your vision, mission, marketing plan, operational plan, sales plan, how you're going to get the product to the customer, what you're going to price it at. You can do all of that before you have manufacturing cost. So I would encourage you to do that sooner rather than later, and refine it when the cost comes in. So if you came to SCORE, we'll help you get started.
Does SCORE provide guidance if you are trying to open a business outside of North America?
We have a few of our advisors across the country that will help you do that. They're in short supply, and I say that because most of the people that are here want to start a business in the U.S., probably in the state they live, maybe even in their own hometown, working out of their garage. So the answer is that there used to be a few. I haven't looked recently. If you go to our website and ask to get a mentor, you can actually search that in the search bar by international experience.
How do I start working with SCORE? I have an idea I'd like to develop and turn into a reality, and I'm curious, what are the steps and costs associated with working with SCORE?
Go to our website, akron.score.org, or the national website, score.org. Get a mentor. We'll call you on the phone within 48 hours-ish. There is no cost for a mentor. It is free. And we'll start working with you. There's no sign up, no contract. We just start working with you. And we'll do it over the phone. We'll do it by Zoom. We'll do it by any of the medias. We'll even come meet you in person if you're reasonably close by.
How often do you update your business plan?
I think that depends on the speed at which your marketplace is changing or your supplier base is changing, or any other externalities are changing. Said differently, I would probably pull it out of the shelf twice a year and read through it and said, is this all still true? And if not, what's changed? So if I got manufacturing quotes, as the one gentleman asked, but next I look through it 6 months later and the cost has changed, I want to redo my plan. Or I had some sales projections and I look at the 6 months and I made them, great, or oops, I didn't make them. So if anything changes, and you can do that quickly. I mean, you can sit down and scan your business plan in a couple of minutes every 6 months. Do it with your business advisor. Just talk through it real quickly. Has anything changed? And if it has, then you need to redo it. If nothing's changed, put it back in the box. Wait 6 months, bring it out again.
How do you feel about investment groups if you need money to start your business?
As a startup, I'm not a fan of investors because investors tend to want to think like owners. Well, they made investment in your business, so you're going to get some help from investors. If you want to have them lend you money, that's something different. And lending is very different than investment. Lending is where they expect to get their money back. Investment is where they may not get their money back, but because they may not get their money back, they're going to want to have a say in your business. If you're okay with that, fine. But if you're not okay with other people telling you how or helping you run your business, I probably wouldn't do investors.
What are your thoughts on building a business based around one mobile app idea and expanding to add additional apps in the future? Does this change the business plan, does this change the business plan making in any major way?
Not really, because the business plan for app number 2 is probably very similar to app number 1. And so I would cut my teeth and learn what I need to know doing the first app. And I wouldn't even think about when the second app's going to happen as far as the business plan goes. If it works with 1, it'll work with 2. If it doesn't work with 1, it may not work with 2. Laura?
I'm really intimidated by the financial plan. How might you recommend putting that together when I know I have missing information, such as incomplete market research, when I can't get it all just yet?
Well, the business plan is not a once and done exercise. The last business I started, and I have 4, the business plan was on iteration number 9.1, before we ever went to the bank for money. Because you refine it, you get more information. As more information comes in, you refine it again. You check this out, find out that was true, and you just keep changing it. But it's a lot easier to update it than it is to create it. So I would start and just create the business plan basics, and then you can fill in the blanks as you go. And as you get more information, you fill in the blanks. That's also helpful in figuring out what you don't know or what you need. And really, how badly do you need that information? And whether information is available at all. You say you're waiting for market research, but maybe some things you just can't research. There just isn't any facts about it. Especially for newer marketplaces, there just may not be any data that's going to be helpful to you.
If I had a first meeting with a SCORE mentor without hearing my business idea and where I was in on the planning, they basically told me not to do what I'm trying to do. Should I continue trying to work with that person or request a new mentor?
Request a new mentor. Hands down. That's one of the things that our training program tells us to avoid is let's not be hasty and make a judgment about a business way too early. Let's not do that. People are people. We do the best we can. Find a new mentor.
How do you price without manufacturer costs?
One way to get a first estimate would be to look at the marketplace and see what it's doing. And how is your product different? you have more features or less features. So if you find a comparable product that's at $100, is yours different? If it's better, if is yours, how much better is your, how much more value you provide than the product you found? So you can do it. It's a certain amount of estimate and guesswork. It's not a perfect science. Uh, but just because you have manufacturing costs doesn't mean that you know what the value to your customer is of that. Remember, price is value, not based on cost, it's based on value. And if you don't believe that, go stand in line at Starbucks and see how much people pay for a cup of coffee that I'm pretty sure doesn't cost them the price that they're paying for it. But people value that. So they value it a lot higher than the cost. So don't get hung up on what the cost is. If you want to get hung up on something, get hung up on the value you provided your customer.
Do you have any tips on how to find out about local retail rents? I'm in Chicago, and a lot of places seem to post negotiable instead of the prices. I'm not sure how to start negotiating when I'm still developing my plan.
The bottom line number is square footage. What's the price per square footage, per square foot? So the best place to find that information would be a commercial real estate agent. Commercial real estate agents should be in the marketplace all the time and should be able to give you a range of price per square foot. If you're in retail, ground floor is a lot more valuable than being on the fourth floor. If you need a loading dock is much more valuable if you're going to have trucks coming in than if you don't. And if you can just work on ground level. So square footage varies by the value that you're getting. And the best person to help you with that would be a commercial real estate agent. In the
All right, what
Chicago area, there's got to be a bunch of them. I don't know any
sure.
offhand, but there's a bunch. Talk to a couple of them. See which one you like.
What is the best way to forecast units of sale for a startup retail business?
Work with an advisor. It's at best an estimate. In the worst case, it's a guess. But look at the size of the market. Start with the size of the market. How many potential customers do you have in whatever marketplace you're thinking about? If it's geographic, how many customers are there? How many potential customers are there? The U.S. Census Bureau takes census every 10 years, and they've got a wealth of data. All that's available online. So again, you can begin to get an estimate of how many customers are there and how many might buy, and you work your way back and forth. It's not exact science, but it's doable. And then you track it. You said, okay, I think I was going to sell 1 unit this week. You don't sell any this week. Okay, I'm now behind plan. Next week I was going to sell 2. Next week I sell 3. Oh, okay, I'm ahead of plan. So you start tracking that and see how it is, and you begin as you get along in it, you get smarter and smarter and smarter, and can do much better forecasting.
How else can you find money to start a business if not through investors?
Banks, friends, family are other places to go. Sure, you've all heard the story of Uncle Charlie got $500 from somebody and is now a millionaire working out of his garage. Family, friends, banks, and there are grants available, but they're hard to find and they're very competitive. But grants are another place to go.
All right, I have so much creativity and ideas that I can flesh out and get excited for that narrowing down to my core aspiration for a business is difficult. I want to continue learning new software and tools, but I want to focus on what I already have a strong foundation in to produce the best results for my clients in the short term. Does it make sense to lean into my strengths for now as a designer and then add more offerings once I grow?
I would make sure that I start with one idea and focus all my energy on that one idea. And by talking with an advisor, you might find a way of prioritizing those things. One way to prioritize it might be speed to market. If I get out there in a couple of weeks, that's better than if it takes me a couple of years. One might be how new is this app in the marketplace? What does that mean in terms of growth? So I would prioritize them, but I definitely would pick one to start with, and then figure out how you're going to implement that one. Because we all have only a limited amount of energy, and if I split it between 2 or 3 offerings, then I've diluted my personal energy. If I focus on one, I can put all of my energy and whatever limited resources I have into one. It'll go well much better if you do that.
All right, this is not exactly related to this topic. Wondering if there is a resource related to what can be written off that impacts my financial plan.
Your accountant can tell you that. Your SCORE advisor can give you some rough business guidelines, but we are not accountants. We are not CPAs. But for example, I can tell you, for example, you can write off mileage if you're driving to customers. You can write off mileage. You can write off part of your home office. You can write off part of your cell phone. The accountant can tell you how much of that and what you could do with that, right? So there's a lot of places you can do. Your accountant's the best, most reliable source.
Let me see. Does this process work the same with wanting to create an app? Or is there anything unique about an app as a business? And are these generally profitable?
Say that again. I'm having trouble tracking it.
Does this process with a business plan work the same with wanting to create an app?
Oh,
Or is there
yes.
anything unique about an app as a business? Are they generally profitable?
2 questions there. One, the business plan concept is the same for anything, product or service, technology, hardware, software. The business plan concept is the same. Is it profitable? I've seen it go both ways, and it's very product or service specific, and also that means it's very market specific. So my advice is, again, get an advisor, work with somebody, develop your business plan for whatever that is, and see if it is going to be profitable. Doing it on paper is a lot cheaper than spending a lot of money to develop something and find out nobody wants it. Oh, by the way, even the big guys get that wrong. And if you remember New Coca-Cola is a big company. They got that wrong. And I have many examples of the big guys get it wrong. So you want to, business plan is the way to figure that out.
Where can I find out how to develop a business buying plan for a boutique?
A business buying plan? Is that what?
Yeah, where can I find out how to develop a business buying plan for a boutique?
If you mean you want to buy a business, your SCORE advisor can help you with that. If you want to devise a plan to buy product to go into that boutique.
Yes.
Then,
She says,
okay.
example, how many dresses to buy, tops, etc.
That again is something I want to work very close with a business advisor in terms of determining quantity, because you've got a couple of dimensions there that complicate it. You've got style, you've got size, you've got color, and to get that right in a startup is requires some careful planning. Uh, I will tell you the vendors that you're working with are going to want you to buy more than you probably want to buy. And what you want to do is start with the most popular sizes. And your suppliers can tell you what those are. Uh, and if you start with the most popular, that gives you the best chance of success. How do they know what's the most popular? Because they know how much they sell of any given product, size, color, uh, or variation. So look to your vendors to help you with that. Again, be reasonable about it though. I was working with a store owner. The vendor came in and said, "Oh, you got to have this. You got to have this. You got to have this." So she ended up with a full wall of stuff that nobody wanted to buy. So ultimately, had a fire sale for everything on that wall. So be careful of what the suppliers tell you. Just be smart about it. Laura?
How do I plan for staffing and paying staff when I'm starting as a freelancer?
My first question was, do you need staff? And you won't know that. You won't know the what you need until you get started and find out what you need. And you won't know when until you find out how fast your business is going to grow. So I work with an advisor to get your business started, get it up and running. Then it will become clear to you as your business grows when you need to add staff.
How do you plan out time for your professional development while looking for work and building a business?
If you're starting up, I would recommend you think about things in terms of thirds. A third of the time, you're going to be dealing with customers and clients. A third of the time, you're going to be marketing. The third of the time, you're going to be working internally on internal stuff. And that's where professional development would fit in. You're going to be looking at financial reports. You're going to be ordering product or whatever you're doing, developing processes, or whatever it is you're doing internally. And that's where that would fit in, is that internal third.
What are your thoughts on GoFundMe to get startup money for my business?
Doing what to get startup money?
GoFundMe account.
Oh, GoFundMe. There are, in my experience, a lot more successes than there are, or sorry, a lot more failures than there are successes. And sometimes it takes a long, long time to get there. If you've got a worthy cause, maybe you'll be successful. It's to me, it's try it. I wouldn't say never try it, but if it doesn't work, don't be disappointed. And the question you have to answer yourself is, what if you only raise a little bit amount of money? What are you going to do with that? You can give it back, or are you going to keep it? And if you've promised you're going to give people maybe some product when you get up and running for free if they invest now, and if you don't get up and running, now what are you going to do? So you want to think that pretty carefully through, not in the case where you raise all the money you need, but in the case that you don't. What are you going to do then? Now, if somebody's raising money for hospital bills, then you know exactly what's going to happen to that money. They're going to pay hospital bills, and you're never going to get it back. That's fine if that cause is worthy, and then that's fine. If you're starting a business, though, that's something a little different. So I would just be careful.
What is your opinion about starting a consulting firm around government regulation for cybersecurity?
If you want to consult on government regulations or cybersecurity, is that the question?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it?
Cybersecurity is going only one direction, and that's up. We need more and more and more and more of that. I think that would be a wonderful, wonderful business to do. A lot of businesses have no idea how vulnerable they are. So I think that certainly should be successful. Government regulations, that is a moving target. I'd be really careful of that one. There are people that do it, but it requires a lot of keeping up with what's going on in the various regulations, because the regulators are always regulating and adding more regulations. That's a tough one. And it's very diverse. Are you in telecommunications? Are you in trucking? Are you in transportation? Because regulations for those are all different. So, but cybersecurity, pretty much all the same needs, requirements, problems, solutions. I would lean in that direction if I were you.
Are businesses with a high startup cost something to stay away from?
If I had the choice, the answer would be yes. Stay away from it. The cheaper you can get into your business, the better off you are. The higher your entry cost is, the longer it may take to get your money back, or at least break even on that. So unless you've got really deep pockets, I would, as a small business owner, stay away from high startup costs.
All right. How do I find market rates for the education consulting field?
Depending on what field you're educating in, you might do some internet searches for comparable companies and see what they're getting for what looks like comparable value. And some people publish those prices, some don't. But if you do enough research, you should be able to zero in on about what the value is and what the price should be for the value you're providing. Not an easy answer, sorry.
Is it okay to do a foam mock-up of your design to figure out your size, measurements, colors, materials, etc., before a business plan?
Sure. I mean, there's no right answer to that. You can do that first, and then sit back and do your business plan, or you can do them simultaneously. Either one works. I love the idea of a foam mock-up. I had a client had what seemed like a really, really good idea, and it was for cats. And so she actually built a mock-up, and her cats hated it. And it seemed like a good idea at the time, but boy, she had like 4 cats, and they all 4 hated it, and they just hated the idea. So she saved a lot of money by not doing that and trying to develop a product, have a manufacturer make a bunch of them. So again, mock up and test marketing and trying it out and is always a smart idea. Always a smart idea.
All right, we are all caught up. There's some questions on our phone number. The number for our particular office, but this is Akron, is 330-379-3163. I would suggest if you want a mentor that instead of calling the office, you would go online. You can choose your area and find a mentor closer to you if you're not in Akron. And even if you are in Akron, if you call the office and I have to enter all the info into the website. So it's probably easier for everybody when you go on and you can request your mentor and type in all your information. But I'm happy to help you with it if needed. You will get an email from me later today or tomorrow morning with this recording, as well as a copy of the slides. And Al, thank you so much. Oh, wait, we have a question. Rosalind wants to know if there's a location in Youngstown. There is no longer an actual chapter in Youngstown. So we, the Akron chapter, actually cover Youngstown and 4 other counties. So Rosalind, we are your people. The Akron chapter is your contact. All right, Al.
Hey, thank you all. Appreciate the questions. They're great questions.
Very good questions. I learned a lot today from all the questions that were asked. So
We always get different questions every time we
I
do this.
know.
It's fun. That's what's the fun.
All right,
So,
everybody, have a great weekend.
have a safe summer.
Yes.
Put on sunscreen. Wear sunscreen. That advice is free, by the way.
Right.
Right.
All right, everybody. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.